James McMurtry, so good to have you back.
Good to be back.
Apologize if it was my fault if it took 20 years to make it happen, but maybe
It seemed like I was here once in the interim.
I hope
God
that's true.
Knows what it sounded like in Vision. There was a time I was playing acoustic guitar through a 200-watt lab head and a high-watt cabinet.
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe that's the one you forgot.
Memory is kind like that sometimes. But, I don't know. I'm just thinking about the songs you write and the stories you tell and the characters that, it's just it's a beautiful power of observation to be able to walk into a town or walk into a thing. And I guess these stories just kind of come to you when you see the sign of a store or you talk to somebody or how?
I get 2 lines with a melody. And if it keeps me up at night, I think, okay, who said that? And then I can kind of try to envision a character that might have said that. And then I can maybe get the character's story.
Yeah.
And if I'm real lucky, I can get a verse-chorus structure in there somehow to make a song out of it.
So it takes a while to write a song.
It can. This last song took 20 years.
Well,
later on, we're going to do one that took 15 minutes. It can happen either way.
Do you read or remember what people write about you, and does that affect your writing at all? I mean, all the praise and all the stuff people write.
I read it because I can't not read it.
Right.
But I've learned not to take it too personally.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty dang good usually.
These days, yeah. There's always going to be a snippy review here and there. I don't know, because somebody's got to make a name for himself. But,
right.
But the thing about it is, you get one of them snippy reviews and you think, okay, people are going to remember the name of the guy that got the bad review. They're not going to remember the name of the guy that wrote it. So I kind of...
So it works out for you either way.
Yeah. Well, Keith Richards said press is press.
Yeah. And this new
This
new batch of songs, are you a guy who thinks about sort of a theme for a record, or you just kind of wait till you feel like you got a pile that's big enough to go in and record, or how does it work?
Like you said, the songs on this record are the ones that got finished in time to make the record.
Yeah. They were ready.
Yeah.
And you went down to New Orleans and cut a bunch of this stuff?
Yeah, C.C. Adcock and Mike Napolitano produced this record.
Yeah. Bunch of interesting people playing on it.
Yeah.
Ben Mott Tench and Ivan Neville and Dirk Powell and Sam Broussard and Danny Barnes and your son Curtis.
Yeah, and then there's a bunch of Irish guys that I never even met. They emailed their tracks in from Ireland. That's what you can do now.
Right. So does it take you out of the record-making process where you just kind of...
It did this time, but what really takes me out of the record-making process is economics nowadays. Because, like, used to, we toured to promote record sales. Now we make records to promote tour dates. Because the money comes off the road mostly. There's not, the mailbox money is, some of it's there, but, and since my crowd tends to be a little older, they buy a hard product, which is good royalty.
Yeah.
But it's still about half downloads, which is a lot less royalty. And just the sales overall are a lot less than they used to be, because, you can copy stuff. So our livelihood now comes off the road. So we can't stop for 6 weeks and make a record like we used to.
Right.
We come in, lay down a few tracks and leave.
Because you got another gig to play.
And let the producers figure out what to do with whatever we did. This is okay. Ivan Neville might sound good on this. Call Ivan,
Yeah.
That kind of
I'll be in Memphis.
That's the good part about, making a record in New Orleans is your producer can call Ivan Neville,
right?
And I don't know why. I don't know why Ben Mott was in town for some reason, and I think they went and kidnapped him and dragged him in the studio and made him play keyboard on this thing. So it worked out.
Well, what's funny about it is that the new way of making music is kind of like the really old way, which was you go out and you play and you put on a show and people buy tickets and that's how you make your living.
Pretty much.
That other thing in the middle where record companies would give you a big advance and all that stuff. That was kind of, in a way,
that was nice, actually. I got in on the very tail end of that. none of those advances recouped,
Yeah.
and I didn't care. I was happy to have them.
Well, yeah, that's cool, and that's great. That it must have been interesting. I'm just trying to imagine, you sitting in the office at Columbia Records in New York, and them trying to figure out what the hell they'd gotten themselves into.
Yeah, and me too. Yeah, yeah. They really didn't know what they got into.
But you seem like a guy who likes to work, or you do work a lot, and you travel. You like to drive.
I do. Yeah, I like seeing the country at different times a year.
Yeah.
Every now and then, getting some new highway in that I hadn't seen before. That's always good.
Any favorites in your recent travels? Some new discoveries?
Well, a couple of years ago, I took a ferry boat across Lake Michigan on a tour. We had to go from Michigan to Wisconsin, and the best way to do it was to ferry across.
Wow.
On the last coal-fired ferry boat on the Great Lakes.
Wow.
That was cool.
Were you thinking of the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald as you're
No,
going across?
because it was you can't help but think about it. But it was a crystal clear, smooth day. You know, but what I did notice was how much smoke those coal burners made.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot of smoke.
But you live in Texas. You live in the home.
I live in Austin. It's surrounded by Texas.
Yeah.
But I have relatives in Texas, so I can't denigrate the place all that. But, I go hunting there.
Yeah.
It's good for some things.
Hey, in case you've just tuned in, you're listening to eTown. I'm here with James McMurtry. I love the fact that you're sort of an everyman in that you're a guy who appreciates hunting and fishing and guns and all these things, but you also are kind of known for whatever reason as a protest singer.
Because I happened to write a protest song that got noticed, which is good because you got to get noticed for something. But I mean, I've always had a certain amount of social commentary woven into my songs. I try to do that because it's easier to get your point across that way. If you get on a soapbox, you can screw up real bad. You can write a sermon. I got real lucky with "We Can't Make It Here." It turned out to be a song.
It was a song that was sort of adopted by the Occupy Wall Street movement, and
a lot of people. Well, and Stephen King played it on his big old radio station up in Maine, and so I was, that was my biggest market for a long time.
There you go.
It's around Bangor. Because, well, at the time, Maine had lost 30,000 jobs to outsourcing.
Right.
That song took on really well in Union states.
Yes. That song, for those of you who don't know it, is just about the changing economics.
Bernie Sanders used that for his campaign song when he was running for Senate. So maybe I can get some presidential action out of this.
Yeah.
thing.
I can see you playing the
We have to
inaugural
learn that
ball
song
now.
again. That's a drag.
Yeah. There every now and then, I don't know whether you went from a social commentary to all the way over to sermon, but your song Cheney's Toy about the former governor of Texas is a little bit more pointed.
That's a rant.
That's a rant, okay.
It's a fun rant. They should never have run that as a single, because it's obviously just McMurtry ranting, and it's kind of fun. But there's no the narrator is not somebody you're going to identify with because it's obviously me. Whereas with "We Can't Make It Here," that's every man. That's the listener can hear himself, and that's the nature of the popular song. You have to the listener has to be able to hear his or herself in it, and you can't with Cheney's Toy. That was wrong. By then, I was the political singer,
right?
At that point, and so that's what they ran with.
Well, we live in interesting times, and I think we rely on. We rely on guys like you to try to make some sense out of these stories. We know the headlines, and we know some of the bigger issues that have to do with, the big money in politics and outsourcing of jobs and degradation of the planet, and those kinds of big themes people are aware of, but without preaching. You're able to tell these stories about how it is for everyday folks, even though you're not one exactly.
Sometimes, well, I don't know. Musicians are service industry, basically.
That's right. Yeah.
We sell beer. No, I've heard kids standing out behind bars going, "We're not beers, we're not in the business of selling drinks." I'm like, "Yes, you are, because if that bar goes under, you don't have a gig."
Right.
And those people serving the drinks, those are your coworkers. Treat them well.
Yeah.
It might have took me a while to figure that out too, but
Well,
but that's how it is.
You've helped on both sides of the bar.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. I think the reality is, most people do have a kind of glorified sense of what it's like to be a traveling musician, and it's really just seems so glamorous and so amazing. But
it's not a bad job at all.
You've got some flexibility.
It's not
and
what
some
people
freedom.
imagine, but I don't mind it a bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's what I can do good, and it's what I have the credentials for. I can't get a better job right now.
Right.
There's no way.
Well, like I say, I think it's working out for us too. And speaking of drinking beer, there was a funny thing. I think it was maybe about a year ago. And I'm not a huge consumer of popular culture and advertising and magazines, but there's apparently a famous ad campaign for beer that's about a guy who's the most interesting man in the world. And there was a big billboard that apparently went up in Austin, in your hometown,
Right. Yeah.
that said, James McMurtry, the most disinterested man in the world.
Yeah. Well, that was for Lagunitas Brewing. They gave me a little help on the road here, which is good. Yeah, if you're into IPA, I recommend the Lagunitas. It's good stuff.
I guess we are in the beer business after all.
Well, there is a connection. Well, all those
Yeah.
Texas bands are all Bud Light sponsored.
Yeah, that's right.
They get buses out of Bud Light.
Well, the light crust.
But I'm not going to drink that. I'll get a van from Lagunitas.
It all started with the light crust doughboys.
Well,
they got a bus from
Well,
that.
the thing
too.
is, like here in the States, we don't have aristocracy, royalty, nobility to sponsor the arts. What we have is corporations. So that's why it was way, light crust doughboys. There was, Leroy Carr and Scrapper Blackwell, playing in storefronts, lip syncing, selling whatever they could.
Right.
Flat and Scruggs doing the Martha White Flower
Yeah.
hour or whatever.
I'm well aware of that one. Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we have here to sponsor the arts. Is we got to sell stuff to do it.
Well, meanwhile, we get to the treat of listening to these stories you've written, these tales you put together and set to music, and again, I think it's a rare talent. I wish I could do it, but I'm glad you can.
Oh,
and we got more songs to listen to. So
yeah, we do.
I don't know if you're ready for it, but I think we could play some more music.
We'll do a twisted little ditty that I wrote. Yeah.
Let's get back to music. Welcome back, James McMurtry. Hi, this is Nick Forster from eTown. If you want to stay up to date with all the performances, interviews, and behind-the-scenes footage, click the subscribe button. Thanks.
Gone from the crossing. No one now keeps the fort. From the banks of Jeremiah's run off into the setting sun.